So welcome everyone to the June edition of Space Data Hackers. So glad that you all could make it, and so glad that we've got Kevin Lalli is going to talk to us about SatGPT. It's very exciting to bring this group together, and as I was saying, to see folks who've been joining us in the past, folks who are joining us new. This meetup is out of the Pacific Northwest, out of the Seattle area, but we are not doing this just purely for the local scene. This is for everyone. We've had folks join in from Taiwan, from Portland, not the Portland in Oregon, but the Portland in Maine. So I hope that those of you who are joining from other places across the country, around the world, will enjoy this evening and come back for future sessions. So what are we going to do tonight? We're going to have Kevin Lalli give a talk about SatGPT. Kevin is a principal engineer at Hydrosat. And I think he's got some stuff to show us, and then we'll do Q&A. And with remaining time, we'll have a community connect where we can set up some of those breakout rooms, and people can connect and chat and geek out about space data on a more intimate scale. So for those of you who may be joining for the first time, or are just connecting with Space Data Hackers, Space Data Hackers is a program of Space Northwest. That's a logo that I've got up over there. And we'd love for you to join us. If you are not already on the Meetup, head over to Meetup, join the Meetup. You'll get all the information as soon as it comes out about what's happening with Space Data Hackers. You can follow us on Twitter. We have a Slack you can join. And if you are in the Seattle area, we would love for you to come hack with us in the fall. We're doing the NASA International Space Apps Challenge Hackathon, and we host it in Seattle. It's something that happens around the world. So anywhere that you are, go to spaceappschallenge.com. You can get to it from Space Apps Seattle, and you'll find a place that you can join in. Whether it's a city and an event that's local to you, or the global virtual online event. It is one of the largest hackathons in the world, and it is a way that we contribute using space data to humanity's future in space and the benefit of life on Earth. So I'll also put out a call for volunteers. Space Northwest is an organization that exists to maximize the contribution of the Pacific Northwest to humanity's future in space. And we do it through a whole bunch of programs that bring people together who might not have ever gotten together to do space things and connect. And when we put these together, it's a volunteer effort, and we would love to have you join us. You can email info@spacenorthwest.org if you're interested in being part of the organizing team or the event team for any of these events that we've got coming up. NASA's Space Apps Challenge Hackathon, this meetup, the Space Data Hackers. We do a Techstars Startup Weekend that is focused on space. The event that we had back in December, and we're planning to have it in December again. Last year's event was absolutely amazing, and we're looking to repeat that. And Space Entrepreneurs Seattle is also under the Space Northwest umbrella. And we just had a fantastic talk with the COO of Stoke Space last week. So lots of great learning, great connections, and fun things to do, and I hope that you'll join us. So now that I've had my spiel, I don't want to hesitate any longer in turning the floor over to Kevin. As a seasoned optical systems engineer, he's done a lot of development and deployment for complex systems for space, Earth, the metaverse. As the principal engineer at Hydrosat, he's working there. They are building their own geospatial analytics company with thermal band imaging satellites. And Kevin's been around at Planetary Resources, Bluefield Technologies, and Amazon Kuiper. He's in the Seattle area, and we are so happy to have him part of the community and talking to us tonight about the project that he's been working on, SatGPT. And Kevin, I will hand it over to you with that.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike. How am I coming through?
You sound great.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay, looks like you'll need to give it up, but otherwise I should be ready to go.
Okay, I will stop sharing. Go for it.
Okay, how's that looking?
Pretty good.
I can try to, I tried to match your resolution. I think it should be good. If it's too tiny, I can try to make things a little bigger. But yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you for that great introduction and also the invite tonight. So I have caught, I'll say, fewer of these events than I would have in a perfect world. But I've at least been to a couple and really enjoyed them. And also, for those who were at last year's NASA hackathon, the Seattle chapter of that, I did a talk that I would say is in some ways kind of a deeper dive behind some of the backing technology for SatGPT. So that may, I don't know if we recorded that one, but if we did, that may be worth checking out. And in any case, I know the slides are available because those are some open source NASA education materials. So I'm definitely curious who is in the audience tonight, if we have kind of general hackers at large, or if we do have some Earth observation, remote sensing folks in the group tonight. In any case, just, yeah, curious what brought you here. So we will be talking about a side project I've been working on. I've been calling it SatGPT. So obviously a spin on if you've followed ChatGPT or any of the other natural language transformers that are out there. My recent kind of tagline for the project is that it's the app that lets you talk to satellite images. So I'll definitely be unpacking a bit of what that means tonight and showing some previews. And also kind of talking about the motivation that got us to where we are. So I won't repeat that very kind introduction. I will take a second to plug Hydrosat and just say that we are doing some pretty interesting things towards providing climate solutions, really increasing our ability to adapt to changing climate, especially when it comes to agriculture, crop production, water usage for that kind of thing. So yeah, the technical solution part of it, at least, is a constellation of small satellites that will have thermal band measurement. Ultimately, we'll be deriving land surface temperature from those instruments that will be flying next year. Thought I'd add some other notes just for context of this talk. I am definitely not a software engineer by trade, so all of the Python I've picked up has been throughout the course of my professional career. I had just a smattering of MATLAB as a physics undergrad, but it was really just a crash course that I forgot over the years until I was basically doing, integration testing. The bulk of my professional work has been hardware systems development and integration. So typically where I've run into the need for, running someone else's scripts or maybe doing some data analysis on my own has been originally kind of in that context. I'll say at Kuiper, I got a cool and I guess I'll work through the list. So also, even though I've done a few projects now in the remote sensing world, pretty much always there's another team of data analysts that get to are the most capable at working with that actual downstream imaging. So I've been involved with a lot of what I'd call like the low-level calibration of these instruments. But usually when it comes to, really prettying them up to the point that they're being shared with the world, there are other more qualified folks on that piece of the puzzle. So I've been really lucky at Hydrosat to, continue to absorb from some folks like that and stay up to speed with kind of the latest and greatest tech for, for working with this type of data, which can definitely get unwieldy very quickly. So yeah, as part of that kind of on the job experience and learning curve that I've come up with Python, I have done a bit of what I'd call like dashboard development and or web app. I think a lot of people use those interchangeably. I would maybe split some hairs between the two, but in any case, my first experience was something I was pretty lucky to be involved in. I was at Kuiper at the right place and right time. So I'll say we took some components. I won't say exactly what components in this call, but you can always find me over DM. Anyway, we took them to radiation testing at UW and put them in front of the ion beam that they have there, and occasionally lend out to satellite projects for this kind of thing. And so going into that test, we had a very limited test window. I had been responsible for setting up what we'd call the ground support equipment to run that test, kind of characterizing its behavior in the lab. And so what we wanted to do once we brought it, in front of the beam was very quickly catch upsets, latch ups, that kind of thing. So the first thing that I developed in this realm that was really useful was a error detection app that we were able to run live there. So it was a nice, feather in my cap. I'd say I was happy to produce something useful for the team. Probably took a bit more time than than I really should have spent on it. Ideally I would have had a kind of a test software engineer on hand, but we were running pretty lean at that time and did enjoy the experience. So we've kind of circled back around, and the short version of this 6-month history of the SatGPT project has been that I started, like many probably have, in just OpenAI's online chat interface. And so around the beginning of this year, when the hype really started building for that, I'd say I was pretty soon trying to just push the limits for our domain, right? Like what particular data, whether it's like a TLE, just to like track a particular satellite at a moment in time. So TLEs are the format that NORAD uses to do that, to exchange that data. Can actually synthesize some TLEs for you. Maybe nowadays with like the browsing plugin, I would not be surprised if you could actually pull a like fairly recent valid TLE for a particular satellite. So similar stuff around the satellite images, which I'll be going into in more detail, and it evolves very quickly, right? So that has definitely been fun in some ways to see these new features, completely new tools in some cases, coming out week to week. But if you're trying to build something that might be useful to you or someone else eventually, you do want some like stability there. Like you can't be rewriting things every week. So one of the nice things about this project was, it was just for fun. I had that freedom to kind of throw things away and rewrite them completely when I felt it was worth it, and definitely did that a handful of times over the course of these months. So I'd say, there are some lessons learned around that, and clearly I might have added a bit more to this slideshow that I threw together today. So if anyone's curious, and if you're thinking about leveraging LLMs to build something on your own and would like some kind of advice of just what I've learned, like slogging through this myself, I am happy to share that offline. And I absolutely had some help on this project, so I want to give shout outs to a couple of people. One of them is Ivan, who I did not know before the project and this Anaconda app contest that we'll be submitting to by tomorrow. He had a very slick dashboard that was ready to go for looking at Sentinel imagery if you had that stored locally in a particular format. So I'll probably send a link once I get a break from talking of the dashboard that really inspired a lot of the visualization we ended up including in the app. And then my friend David from back in my time in Bozeman, he is a really experienced software engineer, has had his hands on all kinds of different projects, and he's been also really keen on AI in general, but including LLMs. So I'll talk about LangChain a little bit, and he's for sure been, not just a mentor, but was definitely, in the more the back end of this app, helping me along at various points. And again, I rewrote a lot of things right up to the version that we'll be submitting. So not everything that David helped me with survived, but I'm sure we will pull it back in at some point. They were all good lessons, and similar for the visualization stuff. The more you tend to stack together like different packages, different tools, it's impossible not to run into just like totally unforeseen bugs, collisions at some point. So we experienced some of that I would probably need even more time to give justice to. So anyway, both of these guys I believe are available for some more professional projects if you like the work. So that's my pitch for these two. Okay, so some bullet points that are pretty much straight from the README. And by the way, while I'm thinking about this, send this to the chat really quickly. This is our latest working repo for the app that you'll see tonight that's written in Panel. So if anyone's online, if you have a GitHub account, would definitely appreciate a star. Share it with anyone you think might be interested in this kind of thing. It's pretty much usable tonight. We'll be making some last minute polishes tomorrow, and then I will be personally at least stepping away for a couple of weeks. So it should be stable for that time. Just to reiterate, it is been pretty much an experiment for me to mash up these large language models, LLMs, to in general, write Python code, also execute like Python packages that I use frequently. In some cases, I've gotten kind of auto execution like right in the command line. There are some tools for that I'm not using currently, but would be interested in bringing back in as kind of a headless version of the app I'll show. The back end is, like I've already mentioned, there's OpenAI's SatGPT in here. We're hitting it through an API, so that's the only difference from kind of sitting down and chatting with it. But then I'm also using a package called LangChain, which maybe my way of describing it to someone who's, not heard as much about this stuff before. It's kind of like a middleware layer, or, like a helper between what you would like to do and the more, I'd say, fundamental OpenAI model. So what LangChain does, it gives you a lot of common tooling, things like, like saving prompts. If you've, heard of like prompt engineering, it's basically just you're writing text to tell this assistant, tell this model what particular things you'd like to help it with. A bit of what I'll show tonight helps you take a Python function and make that function accessible to your model, or there's all kinds of like new terminology that blows up as you're learning about this stuff. So agents and chains are kind of the top things that LangChain brings to the table, and then they have like a lot of glue around how you can structure those, pull them together. And hopefully, for the Python folks, this will make a bit more sense towards the end of the talk, if you'd like to stick around for that. So a couple of more tools more specific to the satellite imagery. We have STAC, which is the shorthand for spatiotemporal asset catalogs. There are many STAC catalogs on AWS, for example, or pointing to data that lives on AWS. So it is a growing part of the satellite imagery, general remote sensing ecosystem. The like recent Twitter meme I came up with for it is it's like the Dewey Decimal System of satellite images, right? Like it's not the books. It's not even really like the library. Like individual companies or organizations will kind of build their own libraries, but it's a very common specification of like how you describe where certain data lives, so that it can be made very discoverable, is a word they like to throw around a lot. And also, once you discover it, you can actually access it, bring the data back down. And then last but definitely not least, the whole app exists because of HoloViz panel and this contest that Anaconda is running, which, along with tonight, the conveniently timed hacker session, those were both really good motivators to kind of turn something around that other people could use. And hopefully at some point, we'll just be able to send a link and folks can use this. We're not quite there, so the standard way to use this, if you'd like to, it's all in the README here. So you do have to run this yourself. I have some recommendations on GitHub that make it pretty easy. If this is, my hope would be that, like, if this is the first project you've kind of ever pulled down and run yourself, I would want you to be able to do that. And so I'm definitely willing to answer any questions if folks get stuck there. But yeah, the whole idea is we want to make this as low friction as possible, for folks that don't necessarily code themselves, but would like to use the tool, in case we don't figure out like a real deployment at some point. Okay, so I just talked through a lot, and we I think we'll be able to do a live demo tonight. So that will be pretty quick. I'll just take audience requests. But here, I'll talk through some of like the core features and show some videos that I've previously put out. So some folks may have seen these already. Apologies if it's seeming a little bit redundant in terms of images of Seattle, but I'm really excited for other people to start making their own and sharing those. So I've, in some ways, intentionally kept it boring. So yeah, more words before I drop into the video. We're going to do a search of Sentinel-2 Seattle images. So this is something that could very well do in a notebook with some Python functions. But what you'll see is we fire up the panel app and do that, just with a natural language request, and then we show we'll show the images and keep an eye out as the map comes up and we're kind of moving around the images. We can actually do this pretty quickly. I am impressed with how basically a number of like the HoloViz tools come together, as well as like cloud optimized image hosting. I think I kicked this up to like 1.2x, but it is near real time, and you can see the loading spinner up top when it's working on stuff. But if you look closely, we're kind of loading new data on the fly, and it's a bit easier to see in this next scene. So this is kind of a course load, and then it like snaps in there. Hopefully that is coming across on Zoom, and I'll play it one more time. But what we really optimize for in the app is like a nice, quick experience. Someone who's never searched for this kind of imagery before can hopefully, within a few minutes be browsing where they would like to. And it's not focused on bringing this data down locally in this implementation. That had been something I was doing earlier. But what we want to do is keep this like very lightweight. And you'll see in the next video, as well as in the demo, I went with kind of the like ChatGPT plugins layout or UI here. So you don't really see anything, like you don't know what to expect until the request is made. And I thought that was just kind of a nice introduction, it allows itself for a bit of a reveal in what the app can do. So we'll likely go back to some other UI close to this video that's on the repo now, where you kind of keep one map and then you have a chat that supports what data is loaded to the map. Probably makes more sense for something that's robust, can handle a lot of data. But this was kind of the light and more hooky, I guess, version that I thought we'd submit for the contest. So I already talked a bit about Stack. I'm not going to dig into this much more. These slides are available, or I will make these slides available in my GitHub. But this is another video where I go sort of step by step through, tell me what you can do. This all pretty much came for free. Once my tools were loaded into the LangChain agent, it kind of knows what it can do, and it knows what tools it has available. I'm hoping that's not getting totally ruined by broadcast resolution.
Looks good to me, Kevin.
Cool. Yeah.
And
so we're just going through.
And this is the LLM describing its capabilities in its own words.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then we do a little bit of extra, it can do some other things that aren't just images. That was another fun thing we were experimenting with. In this inline version, we could just say, hey, what if we loaded a plot right to the chat? And panel is really what supports a lot of that. So recommend if anyone wants to create like something like this themselves. They've been putting a lot of effort into like easy integration with the OpenAI and even LangChain stuff. There are examples. I used an example to just get started pretty much right away once I had these tools defined and ready. I'm not trying to sound like too much of a salesman. This is all just honest experience. And there are for sure pain points, but when it's going smoothly, I've been like nothing but impressed and kind of like how little you have to do as long as you write some, pretty legible Python functions. The rest almost takes care of itself. So that is what I can go into a bit more detail later. I think that kind of wraps up my intro talk, and I had some ideas, Mike, on how we could proceed with like breakouts versus continuing with slides. But yeah, I'm happy to discuss now. Do a bit of Q&A. It'll take me a minute or two to get set up for the demo, and then I figured people will want to see that. And then after the demo, maybe we can break for the discussion groups. And one of those groups could be, I'll go through in a bit more detail. I'll actually like show some code. So if anyone is really interested in how this came together, I have an extra like 10, 15 minutes on that I could do in a breakout group, if that makes sense.
Sure. So there's a few questions in the chat. One is, what's a typical workflow look like?
Sure. So what we support right now is basically we can do one of these searches, these stack searches. Those are hitting currently just Landsat and Sentinel-2 imagery. So we started, restricted ourselves to those platforms because they have fairly similar instruments across the two. And then you can inspect some of the metadata that comes back in that search. So that's what the cloud cover is. That's what the footprint view is. So either of those will let you, kind of glance at certain things about the data before you're actually loading up the images, spending that bandwidth. And then, finally, it will display these images. You saw a preview of like our RGB or true color viewer. We also support like various spectral indices. That was one of the things that Ivan really pushed forward. So that's pretty much it for now. It's a pretty limited scope, but I'd say it is sort of like an MVP utility where you'll see plenty of folks sharing both like the true color stuff and depending on where they're coming from, like folks in ag that are looking at satellite imagery lean on these various spectral indices quite a bit. So when you're seeing more like the color mapped products, we have enabled access to a number of those through yet another Python package that's called Spindex. Very cool, actually, single maintainer that I'm aware of. I think he gets help on it, but what he has been able to put out is quite impressive. And if I don't have a link in the repo, yeah, it looks like I need to add a shout out to him because that came a little bit later. Yeah, and I am super interested in what other people would like to do with this kind of thing, right? Because the kind of the trade is there are more mature platforms, full blown. A lot of people use GE for especially like academic or more like open source stuff. Commercial, you might see folks using more like Envy. I don't know. Casey can help me out here. He's familiar with some of the industry standards here, right? And I'm not trying to definitely trying not to steal away any of their user base, but I'm interested in like where does this fit in? Is it like journalists? Is it the open source intelligence crowd that would find this kind of thing useful? So yeah, these next few weeks, I'm interested in what other people would like to see. Segmentation, like SAM, object detection has definitely come across my mind as something you do as like a next step in this workflow. Time series analysis, all kinds of things you could do once you have access to this data. But like I said, we've just kind of kept it constrained so far so that we could actually get something out.
Another question, how hard are the OpenAI tools to learn?
I would say it depends where you're coming from. If you have some competency in Python, I would say, compared to other packages out there, I think that OpenAI's Python API is extremely well maintained, well documented. You will find the resources you need on it. LangChain is for sure like a smaller team, but they have gotten some attention, some funding, and I think what they're doing is awesome. It's maybe a little bit more frenetic. There's more like churn to the features and the documentation if you do decide to use LangChain. But my recommendation would be probably like work directly with that OpenAI Python package to get started. And then once you feel like you're pushing the limits, it's a very easy switch to kind of go over to LangChain and start adding that next layer of complexity. I would definitely recommend that progression.
Okay, another one, can this be utilized with GPT-3, 4, and potentially 5?
So I have strictly been running on lately the 3.5 turbo and like the latest release of that with the function calls just kind of made everything easier, and it's like mind-blowingly cheap. I don't even think I've hit like $5 this month since that latest release. I have heard good things about GPT-4, and I really like this last question from Isaac in the chat. So for like code completion, I think that's where GPT-4 would shine, right? I don't know if I made this distinction well already, but I've actually kind of moved away from like the GPT to help me write the code. That this app is primarily, like vast majority, just kind of sat down and wrote it. And maybe that's a testament to the LangChain docs, pretty good. Same with Panel. Panel is just releasing their version 1 in like when they announced this app contest, they dropped the version 1.0 and they're already on like 1.2. So these different groups are all working like very, very fast, but also keeping things pretty well synced. So I'd love to get back to, integrating into this like nice web UI now. Hey, can you help me code? Like, hey, look at this file. Can you help me add these next steps to complete my workflow? I think that is just as interesting in application, and one that I've slightly drifted away from the first few months here. Okay, I'm not very good at multitasking, but yeah, I can definitely take another question or two, and I'm just bringing up the demo now. So send your requests to the chat, mostly like areas of interest, and if you can think of anything that is like time sensitive, I can think of one. It's a little morbid, which is the slide that happened outside of Darrington here in Washington. I'm sure some folks remember the proper name of that one. Anything else we can see, from expect to see at like tens of meters resolution. If you remember when it happened and where it happened, or if there's something happening currently, that's the type of thing that's interesting to test out tonight. You already saw Seattle. We'll at least switch it up. Wenatchee is my second favorite test region, so I'll fire off Wenatchee unless I start seeing some suggestions in the chat. So this will just do a search. I am watching a terminal. So if you're running this yourself, you're going to see some extra output before it gives you back the message, and you can just stay, a bit more up to date on what it's doing. But to make the sharing easy, I'm just showing you all the chat interface here. So basically what's like the state of the app now, it does have history. So I think this, unless I deleted that by mistake. I did delete it. Somewhere I'll be able to turn the history back on very easily. Yeah, this is just what happens as things churn. And what I was about to say anyway is the app has some state regardless of the chat history. And so I started putting that in because I didn't have history a few weeks ago. And it made things easier to think about if you just, we performed a search right now and kind of the Python backend. There is a list of items that was the result of that search. So I'm pretty confident we'll still be able to say something like, so this will not load the images. This will be a bit quicker test here. Still some optimizations when it comes to scroll areas and all that. And this is really basic. I don't even have like tooltips up here yet, which will add in the opacity is such that these kind of like bleed together. But I like Wenatchee because it's like somewhere right around here, and it's right in between two of the sentinel tiles. So every time you hit Wenatchee, you tend to get two sets of tiles, and these tiles are kind of stacked on top of each other. We will have like a few days for each one of these. The way Sentinel and Landsat do their mapping, their global land mapping missions. So they're pretty much filling in these like predetermined checkerboards on the surface of the Earth over and over again. And so these are like two tiles of that checkerboard. They put some overlap between them. That changes as a function of where you are on Earth. But yeah, well, we see we're next to Seattle. Wenatchee's under there somewhere, and we can now use. So what you all will see for like the very first time here is Ivan's like latest image viewer, including the indices in our chat interface here. And I need to make this work so it'll show if you just say images too. It gets a little confused between the footprints and like the actual images. That's just a bit of cleanup I have to do. That is why I'm still using like the extra jargony data cube, just because it's more specific. It doesn't get confused. So yeah, struggling with the scroll again, but okay. So this is our first image that we've pulled up live, and some of the updates versus what you saw a few minutes ago, which was just an RGB. I also called it true color viewer. We can switch around to some different indices. And if you're using an index, so RGB takes 3 bands, right? It takes a red, green, blue band, and it puts those together, synthesizes those in a way like similar to how your eye would see it. All of the beautiful tans in greens and white rooftops of east side of the Cascades, still Western Washington. You can see a track popping out here. An index, and I'm going to bring up the site that I mentioned earlier. So this is the GitHub. Yeah, it's David that put this together. So folks that do not have experience in remote sensing, don't worry too much about it. In contrast to what I just described with red, green, blue, you just stack those channels and you get a pretty picture. Here we're going to do some math on one or more bands, usually more than one band from your image. And these are used for a bunch of different types of applications, for fire, for vegetation, including agriculture. So there are hundreds of these. We don't enable all of them, but we enable the ones that are compatible with Landsat and Sentinel. So this is a really good site. If you're going to be using SatGPT at all, if you're interested in the indices, I would say for sure bookmark this site. I'm sure I'll be using it frequently. And this will, it's pretty awesome, right? Built-in Streamlit, a competitor to Panel, just so folks know, but use the tool that works for you, right? He's got really nice, just quick look, what platforms should I expect this index to work with? So we leverage that. And then we have, the reference just handy right there if you want to publish a paper on, whatever you're doing here, or at least reference. Always good to reference your, attribute your data when you're just blasting this stuff on social media too. Yeah, so Landsat, USGS, NASA sponsored program. Sentinel is ESA, Copernicus, both, great space agencies, as we all know. We added some other, kind of nice to haves here. We are able to quickly adjust the image contrast in this without leaving this viewer. So that's something I find myself wanting a lot before I'm putting out, something to share. One thing we don't have yet, for some reason, we couldn't get transparency working in this particular viewer setup. We again, we had that working at one point. As we enabled this really cool load on Zoom functionality, we weren't able to get anything but black for a no data field. So hopefully we'll figure that out soon, and then for all of our images, we'll have nice transparency where there's not good data. Okay, so I gave the preview of the indices, and we'll just find one I know will look kind of reasonable. I think this is the built area index. So NDVI is the normalized vegetation index. It tells you how green, how vegetated stuff is in your image. Normalized built area index, if I'm guessing right. Nice. It's kind of like the inverse of NDVI, right? If it's built up, it's probably not green. I tend to see more interesting stuff here. You get better contrast for some reason. Anyway, this is all just me making a pretty picture to show you guys, right? Don't really care as much right now what's in the data. You will notice the transparency is working here, and that's just the difference between RGB is the 3 bands. This is 1 band, so it was fine having a no data with transparency for 1 band. 3 bands couldn't do it. So we will continue to work that out, and I will say HoloViz is kind of the whole ecosystem of like the plotting tools we're using, Panel, the web app framework. Those folks have been very responsive to like issues we've come across. They have a discourse that's been really useful to connect with other people that are working on similar stuff. So yeah, one more plug for if folks are like in Python now but have never made a web app, I think it's in a really good place where I would recommend jumping on board. And if you do something in the next 24 hours and change, you can still submit to the contest, which I wouldn't say it's impossible for a lot of folks. I am not using Leaflet. We would have loved to stick with Leaflet. I'm gonna hang on to this link just in case. Yeah, we are all doing all of this in Boca, part of that HoloViz ecosystem. Reasons for that, we're very open. Again, like we're looking for feedback now that this is kind of out as an MVP, right? So I have done some previous stuff. If you look at the README, you'll actually see a leaflet map, so I can understand why that's confusing. Have just done a lot of this on the fly, and there were not necessarily good decisions made early on to like inform all of this. We did a lot of it from the hip, and whatever was working well, like week to week, night to night, that's what we would stick with. And I said, I think this is where Ivan's got his work. Yep. So you can see like this was already done by Ivan. He put this project out a few weeks ago before the project started. So as soon as I saw this and I was having issues with Leaflet in particular and Panel, I was just like, man, this is what I need. Like, I'm going to team up with this guy. And he was into it. So we just kind of kit bashed everything together in like the most presentable form we thought we could get to in a few weeks. But yeah, all the recommendations coming in, definitely agree with. I don't know if we have the creator of Leaf Map in the house. I know he was interested, but it looks like he's not on live. There are for sure other options. HoloViz ended up being the kind of the first cut because it works pretty much the smoothest with Panel. It's all like the same maintainers, same company. And also, yeah, all of this existing work. Those were the big drivers in picking it for this release. The one of the big issues that we got help with from like the Panel team though was sorting out some issues with Leaflet. So it's like that's ready to go. That fix is out once we get a break and like get some of this user feedback. So personally, like I think Leaflet is like the gold standard for web mapping, at least 2D web mapping. So maybe you'll see a bit of both, right? Like there are some nice things with linked plots that you can do in HoloViz, HoloViews. I honestly have a hard time tracking the difference. But yeah, if Leaflet is the overwhelming preference, I would expect to support it. All right, let's see. I'm gonna shut it down for now and might give you a chance. I'll probably take a bit of water as well. But yeah, I have just like a handful more slides, probably like 10 minutes for folks that are really interested in the Python stuff. But I don't think we need to keep that part of the main recording.
Sure.
I'll double check before you stop it. Oh yeah, okay. Glad I remembered this was here. So for the folks we have live, we've already gotten a bit of traction for the project on Twitter, etc. More stars, the better. You know, the more like validation we get that people think this is interesting, the more we'll keep doing it. Totally a passion project for now. So very much appreciate anyone sharing it with folks in their networks. Or yeah, if you're using it, drop in, start a discussion, start the feature requests. This is just another reiteration that like tomorrow this week is like a bit of a milestone for us, and if you're interested in using it, it's a good time to jump in. And we really appreciate any feedback as well as more visibility. And might want to leave it on this for just a minute or two. We do have a Discord server set up, so I guess I can send this to the chat too. If you use Discord already, I'm still getting used to it. It's not my favorite, but that's where we're mostly active. If you want to be on the bleeding edge, or if you're having issues and want to get some help, I'd say that's the best channel right now. Yeah, that is what I would say is like the main show here. Back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you again, and everyone for coming. Really enjoyed being here tonight.
Yeah. So are there any other questions that folks want to ask? Michael Patrick, welcome.
Looks like I'm too late.
Well, you missed you missed a chunk, but what we're gonna do is put some breakout rooms together, and I will let's see, let me double check where we are here. I will stop the recording once we put that in, but I should first share my screen to remind y'all that we've got a meetup that is coming at the end of July. For those of you who aren't familiar with our cadence, we are always here the last Thursday of the month. As we move further into July and August, some of our topics are going to be about how to get yourself ready for the NASA International Space Apps Challenge Hackathon. It's, as I was saying before, it's incredible. Another way it's incredible is that it never got turned into an acronym. So that's Friday, October 6th to Sunday, October 8th. And we hope that we'll see you there in Seattle, or if you are going to be joining from any place else in the world, Space Apps is a wonderful thing to be a part of. I think we'll end it there, stop the recording. Just to actually give you all a reminder, spacedatahackers.com is the website that you can go to, and you can link from there to any of our resources, including the YouTube channel that will have the video that was presented tonight. Okay. One last, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Is the last video from the last meeting published yet?
I think it was. I'll have to double check that.
Because I promised that guy something and I can't remember what it was, so I need to.
Yes, you can use the videos to jog your memory. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and Kevin, definitely a big thank you for such a great presentation and great work. Really interesting stuff. I will stop the recording now, and we will see folks next time.